Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Chuck Connor, the President and CEO of the National Council of Farmer Cooperatives, and I am really honored to moderate this panel along with my esteemed guests that are part of this. NCFC's members, ladies and gentlemen, are regional and national farmer cooperatives, which in turn consist of nearly 2,000 local farmer cooperatives across the country. The vast majority of America's 2.2 million farmers and ranchers belong to at least one or more farmer-owned cooperative. While farmer-owned cooperatives come in all shapes, sizes, and commodities represented, one thing that unites us is that we are far more likely to keep the profits from our operation within local communities instead of sending that money back to Wall Street, other faraway places, and in some cases, maybe even not in the United States. Co-ops are uniquely positioned to both strengthen local and rural economies and support American farmers and ranchers, which is fundamental to our objectives. This is our version of local, and we are certainly enthusiastic about the co-op business model. Again, I want to extend a warm welcome to our panelists, as well as those watching in person and online. Ladies and gentlemen, this is indeed a historic event. Our panel today will be focused on the third pillar of the conference, which is empowering consumers to make and have access to nutritious foods. In particular, our panel is focused on bolstering local food systems to expand nutritious food options, strengthen local communities, and again, support farmers and sustain farmers and ranchers across the country. So without further ado, let's get to it. To start, we're going to do a quick round of introductions and then begin our discussion. I'm going to open with Sherry Tussler. Sherry is Executive Director of the Hunger Task Force. Sherry has had a lot of experience in using federal dollars to procure food, to distribute that food locally. And Sherry, thank you for being a part of this panel. And take a minute or so, Sherry, and introduce yourself for the group.
Sure. I'm the director of Wisconsin's largest food bank. We are an innovator and unique in our processes in terms of how we get healthy foods to people. We are the only food bank in the nation that subscribes 100% to the My Plate model of healthy eating. We operate a farm. We operate a mobile market that has been quite successful. And during the course of the pandemic, we organized 150 free and local agencies across the state of Wisconsin into something called the Hunger Relief Federation, so we could access free and local foods for those groups.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you for being here. Our next panelist is Tara Roberts-Turner. Tara is a farmer, and she is a founding member of a Wisconsin food cooperative. A lot of experience in this area. Tara, please introduce yourself to the group.
Thank you, Chuck. I am a farmer at Turner's Fresh Market and Greenhouse, along with my dad, my aunt, and my brother, and I'm also the general manager of Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative. We are a cooperative of growers owned by the Wisconsin Farmers Union, as well as our farmer members.
Thank you, and again, welcome, Tara. Charlene McGee. Charlene works to bring local food procurement to producers of color across the country. And Charlene, thank you for what you do, and please take a minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you. So good morning. My name is Charlene McGee, and I have the privilege of working as Multnomah County Health Department's REACH Program Manager, and REACH stands for Racial and Ethnic Approaches to Community Health. We're funded by CDC to address chronic disease disparities. And we do that across 3 different strategy areas, one of which includes nutrition, where we work with Black and other farmers of color to source their produce to support community-supported agriculture and other food interventions.
Thank you, Charlene. And our final panelist is Phoebe Wong. Phoebe is an innovator in the area of farm-to-school food. And she is young, but has accomplished a lot in her young career. And so for all the rest of us underachievers, we thank you for what you do. Please introduce yourself.
I am a freshman at the College of the Holy Cross. During my gap year, I did my service in East Hartford, Connecticut as a food corps service member, where we did a lot of farmer school initiatives, and I taught weekly lessons about food education to elementary school students. I maintained and supported 4 gardens in our school community, and I worked really closely with a farmer. Thank you very much.
And again, thank you for being here, Phoebe. The first theme we're going to discuss this morning as part of this session is bolstering local food systems to expand access to nutritious food, and strengthen local economy by job creation and, of course, supporting farmers. So we're going to start, Tara, with you. You wear a couple of different hats as a farmer and as a founder of a food cooperative. How can, in this case, particularly the federal government and its partners, bolster local food systems not only to expand access to nutritious food, but to strengthen these local economies that you're a part of and create those jobs that we're all seeking out there?
So when I was growing up, my parents pushed my brother and I to move off the farm. They were both well educated, but as farmers, we never had enough money, the work was very hard, and they just wanted us to work off the farm. I ended up moving to Boston for over a decade, and my twin brother ended up moving to New York and then Nashville. And what I found out is that over time, I just kept getting pulled back to the farm, but there was no way for me to move back and support myself. So in my 20s, I ended up taking jobs, mostly teaching jobs, so that I could come home in the summer and work with my dad on the farm. In the 30s, and when I was in my 30s, I made a big jump, and I decided I'm going to move back to Wisconsin and work with my parents on the farm. At that point, things were very different than in my childhood. So in my childhood, I could remember us, taking gunny sacks of corn and throwing them onto the truck that was going to go to our local distribution center for COPS, which is a Roundy's banner and is now bought out by Kroger's. That DC doesn't even exist anymore. And so when I returned, we actually were not delivering to grocery stores anymore. We were mostly selling to peddlers that had roadside stands. I was standing out in the strawberry field one day, and I got a call from a Wisconsin Farmers Union rep, and they said, "Hey, Tara, how would you guys at Turner's like to start a food co-op?" So I started attending meetings. And we had 7 founding farmers, along with commitments from Roundy's and Cisco. And we had a salesperson that we hired that had worked for Roundy's and C.H. Robinson. We had the technical skills of our farmers, and we also had the development skills of Wisconsin Farmers Union, and we were off. This was an excellent set of people, sometimes causing good effects and sometimes disasters. We can talk more about that later, Chuck. So our food co-op, due to the financial constraints, started with truckloads of produce to Cisco and Roundy's. And then after some time passed, we decided to form our own transportation company. This allowed us to go back and serve more smaller growers, as well as to make distribution into our own communities. And then the pandemic hit. And that's when we started working with Hunger Task Force. And that was the start of our real work within the community. We were doing the distribution for Sherry's food boxes. We were also doing distribution for Feeding Wisconsin for their tribal elder box. And this allowed us to sharpen our skills towards making multi-stop loads. After that, we decided to launch our own food box. So now we're working with Wisconsin Early Childhood Association to deliver boxes of produce and value-added products to rural areas.
So, Sherry, for both then you and Tara, let's expand on that a little bit in terms of this food box distribution. Talk about some of the challenges you faced in that distribution process as we think about what we can do going forward and the fact that while we want to be local, it does take many hands.
It truly
make
does.
this happen.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, Sherry.
We were able to work with the Wisconsin Food Hub to move dairy products out during the very beginning of the pandemic, and groups needed a pallet or half a pallet of an item, and it was a lot of logistics. But then we got ARPA dollars and CARES dollars, and we started building a box of food that people needed and wanted in Wisconsin. That was unlike the Farmers to Families box. All of the foods were Wisconsin sourced. We called it the Badger box. And we wanted to work with small and medium-sized producers, farmers and food producers across the state, and purchase their products, aggregate them in a box, and move them across the state. 19 distinct food hubs, not like Tara's cooperative, but places where the food box would go every single month, including 12 of the tribal nations of Wisconsin. And the logistics, honestly, were challenging. We first chose Sassy Cow as our milk. We couldn't buy enough milk from James at Sassy Cow, so we moved back to Kemp's. And so we found that some of the logistics there were also challenging, in that we wanted to make sure that we were supporting the small guys and the medium-sized producers, a group like Chalet Cheese in Monroe. And we were able to in some cases and not in others, because we needed to build 20,000 boxes a month, which is a lot of boxes.
So at this point, there were challenges. You've used partnerships to scale up, if you will. It sounds like if you had 19 or 20 distribution partners, that's substantial.
They needed coolers, freezers, trucks, refrigerated vans, freezer blankets. They needed a dock. They needed a load leveler. There was just so many things that we had to get for them, and we were successful in doing that because of ARPA infrastructure dollars.
So the outside dollars enabled you to purchase that infrastructure that was necessary to have that local food distribution. Am I
Without
close
that
on
federal help, we would not have been able to do it.
Or anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, the federal dollars were very important for us because we needed to work with smaller growers. We needed to teach them how to have a uniform product, palletize, handle the logistics, teach them food safety. All of those things took a lot of time and energy and funds.
Yep. So Charlene and Phoebe, I'm going to get to you guys. Don't worry, you're not off the hook here, but I just want the two of you then to talk a little bit based upon those experiences. The pandemic started this process, but we're talking about something now far beyond that as part of a regular course of action for food, nutritious food distribution for helping those in need.
I'd surely like to think so. By December, our ARPA dollars will be elapsed, but we can build a box of 100% Wisconsin products, including bacon, eggs, milk, cheeses, grass-fed beef, beautiful vegetables for $90 or less, delivered to the site, built and delivered. And that's critical because a commodity supplemental food box basically costs about the same amount. And the difference for a senior in terms of their health and their diet, they're looking forward to what is going to be in the box is indescribable. The commodity programs are good. I don't want to say bad things about them, but they're not fun and they're not easy to look forward to.
And not to put words in both of your mouth, but it sounded like from our conversations earlier, you were able to put together these boxes locally, competitively priced with other boxes that may not have had local-only products. Is that
Absolutely. Sherry and I were talking earlier, and our box cost delivered almost the exact same $90 per box. And, the childhood centers that we're currently delivering to are so appreciative of these boxes. And the kids that are eating them are trying new foods. We give them recipes. We give them articles about the farmers. So they're learning where their food is coming from. They're eating fresh, local produce. And this not only benefits the children that are receiving the box, but all of the small growers that are participating in growing the product for the box. It opened a door for a lot of smaller growers who were not able to yet reach delivering to a Roundy's or a Cisco, but want to participate into supplying food for their community.
Did you find there was maybe a change in demand attitude as well by the fact that it was local in that circumstance?
Oh, absolutely. One recipient of the Badger Box said that when she opened it, she felt that like she had gone on a vacation up north.
I'm not sure what up north means.
Oh, you got to come to Wisconsin. It's awesome up north.
All right. Thank you both for that. We unfortunately do need to keep moving on. Please. Our second theme is dealing with local procurement challenges and strategies that address these challenges to aid communities and institutions in expanding local food procurement. Charlene, can you speak to the barriers that institutions face in procuring more local foods? And of course, what's the solution to those barriers?
Okay.
The tough part.
So just quickly, just to offer some context. So through our work, we partner, so the REACH grant that we have, our priority population are Multnomah County's Black and African immigrant communities due to the disparities that have been noted through the chronic disease burden we experience as a county. While we have those 3 different strategies, we have 2 other strategy areas that we work across. So that's economic development and social cohesion, really with the recognition that as easily as doctors can write prescriptions for medications, they should be able to do the same for economic relief. So we're intentional about how we're doing our work. Multnomah County, as an organization, leads with race, and the REACH program is an example. So going about our work, we partner with Black and African-led and serving organizations, and that also includes our farmers. A lot of our farmers are definitely managing small and medium-sized farms. So I know certainly one of the challenge, I told them I will say regardless, definitely contracting with government entity, right? You all are nodding your heads. We know the challenges that exist. We have various procurement rules, both as local public health and then because our funds are federal, those are additional that they have to abide by. We hear from them the challenges around, requirement for different insurance. Another one for sure, I also have to note is climate change. Living out in Oregon, we've seen the high temperature, so excessive heat, as well as smoke that have damaged the crops, right? So when you're an emerging farmer with limited to no resource, like any sort of, even a day or 2, and let alone weeks or beyond that, right? It definitely impacts your ability to grow. Additionally, I'll say one other thing too, is that our work also outside, I think sort of what distinguishes us as well, is that we really strive to lead our work using community wisdom. I was talking earlier to someone I met, and we were just talking how oftentimes, right, we're forced to prove what we already know that works. We know that if our community, we've seen through our community-supported agriculture program, right, that if we provide them with fresh, culturally appropriate, nutritious, locally grown food, they eat it. And oftentimes, right, because part of our evaluation with CDC, we have to do both long and short-term evaluation. Like, why do we have to keep doing this? I'm like, to keep getting the money, right? So I think that's just like another important thing to know. Like, what we know works, we need to implement it and quit trying to test and plow it through. I think, thank you. And I think just sort of leading that into the terms around opportunities, we are certainly, with today being what today is and the significance of today, we have an opportunity to leverage this, looking at universal school lunch. I'll say also part of our nutrition work, we also do work around breastfeeding because the breastfeeding rates for our Black community members are low, both in terms of initiation and duration, right? So that for us also counts as food. What does it look like for us to offer lactating moms $1,000 to help them to support and do that, right? So that's like another possible solution. How do we standardize the food as medicine? How does that become part of the Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, right? And ensure that as we're doing that, that we're making sure that farmers and those who are sourcing the food are also being paid value rates and that they're not having to cut down their costs or, to go without so that it can be able to say, I worked with county government. I can keep going. You want me to do some more?
So I prompted you earlier, Charlene. You've got a lot of examples, and that's probably good, but it's not good in many ways as well. Secretary Vilsack this morning in his opening remarks, I think, admonished us that this is not the final word. There's a lot more to come, and if I know Tom Vilsack well, he means that, and we're going to see a lot of actions coming forward. I'm not limiting you to two, Charlene, but if you were advising the secretary and he were sitting here, what are the one or two things that he can do most effectively to really sort of promote, if you will, participation by farmers of color who are trying to get into this market?
So one thing I would just say, right, I think one major challenge and barrier that we can all agree to is racism. If we look at, so if we look at the history of America, right, Black farmers account for 0.5% of farmers in this country. We know that farms that are thriving today are doing so on the back of Black farmers. We know that as this country evolved and shifted, that Black people were not allowed to own land, including in Oregon, right? So access to land is another issue to also note. Additionally, financing. I was sharing last night, I received a call from one of our farmers who, she's trying to grow her produce. And the land that she's been on, she's been asked to leave. And she's trying to figure out to pull together resources to be able to get another land to continue to grow. And I'll say a lot of the farmers that we talk to, they literally just simply want to grow. But you cannot grow without access to land. You cannot grow without access to funding. You cannot grow when banks are not willing to, give you the money or to invest in that entrepreneur skill that you have.
Credit is a big deal.
Credit is huge.
USDA has a lot of credit programs, Charlene. Not to put you on the spot too much, but are they serving what they're intended to do in terms of farmers of color?
They're not. I think if we want to be honest and keeping it real, they have not. We know that through multiple other government programs. I think, a lot of, I'll say this too, right? There are a lot of amazing, innovative programs happening throughout the country. A lot of them are in what we call the pilot phase, and we know they work. I'll actually give an example of one couple that we've done in Multnomah County. So we have partnered with local Black farmers where we've taken 3 acres of the county land, went through our RFP process, and that was like a whole other experience there. And through that process, we were able to give the land to Black farms. The intent is to have multiple Black farmers to use that, and it's innovative, right? Here we had the county own 3 acres of land that was just sitting there, nothing was happening. And here we are making that investment, right, to do so. And as exciting as that project is, there's been tons of challenges, right? We've had to look for funds to be able to help them to be able to source to get water to the farm, helping to get electricity to the farm, helping to build infrastructure, right, that they need in order to grow, right? Because you just simply, I've learned this over time, not being a farmer myself, it's not just simply just having access to land. There's so many other factors and things that go into the ability to do so. I think, again, with, working with the federal government, there's been tons and tons of information, tons and tons of reports, abundance of recommendations that have been given to help to alleviate that. And I think now is the time to put those recommendations to practice.
Well said. Thank you, Charlene. Moving along, folks, our third theme is successful initiatives that have leveraged partnerships and federal assistance programs to expand local foods. And Phoebe, I'm going to turn to you now and would like for you, if you could, expand a little bit upon some of the work that you have been doing to link local farmers with schools in that region. And for many of us, this just seems like it ought to be a natural, right? That you've got a school right there in a rural community among farmers growing food, and why can't that happen? Share some of your experiences, Phoebe, And then, of course, I'm going to follow up and ask for what can we do to make it happen more.
Well, definitely. So you have all of these farmers in these communities, and it's really hard for them to sell foods to schools. Within East Hartford, it was really hard for, the food service office to procure some of these foods for these students. And honestly, some of these programs are so crucial to students' learning and their well-being. For example, the New England Dairy Council assigned a cow and a farmer to each school. Norris Elementary School was assigned Peanut, and our farmer was female. So we did a lot of lessons with the cow, and we even got to meet the farmer online. And the amount of students that were just shocked by the fact that our farmer was female is just crazy. Just not knowing that, agriculture is a pathway in terms of jobs and just something you can study in the future is crazy. There were a couple girls who at the end were like, I want to be a farmer. I want to be just like Erica. That tie to agriculture allowed these students to see new pathways for their future. And I believe that education is so important when it comes to food. Another thing is just different programs like gardening within schools allow students to have connections to their culture, their communities. We worked so closely with a farmer in the district who consulted on all of our school gardens. He told us when to plant things, how to plant them, different things that will make our plants grow better. He even helped set up, I think, 2 of our irrigation systems at our school gardens. So kids got to plant things that were, socially and culturally connected to them, and they got to share with their classmates about these things, giving them a voice and allowing farmers to be connected to the school system. Obviously, I think that when it comes to procuring local foods from these farms in the neighborhood, there's going to be so many different obstacles that pop up, and I think that the USDA should expand their funding for some of these programs and allow it to be easier for farmers to sell to schools and for schools to buy from farms.
Phoebe, what would you describe as maybe the 1 or 2 of those major obstacles that farmers face in selling that product to their local schools?
I think at end of the day, it just comes down to different rules and regulations. I think there's so many obstacles in terms of the law that can be, fixed. You have all of these different things happening, and you should definitely make it easier for farmers to be able to sell to schools because they are willing and they really do want to sell to schools. And honestly, when it comes to local foods in the neighborhood, farmers know best. They know what's good for their community and the community that they are representing. So when it comes to farmers selling to schools and schools receiving these foods, listen to the farmers because they represent a major part of the community that you're in.
So procurement rules are an obstacle.
Definitely.
That's something we can work on. Interesting. You described the students, and I find that fascinating and something I hadn't thought of as I was sort of preparing with this because, in American agriculture, and much of my career has been about trying to educate the consumers on farmers and the good work that is going on out there and how we should be thankful for that. But the way you describe it, using this system, there's a great appreciation among the students themselves, and they appreciate the farmers more, it sounds like, as a result of this. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, students love learning about food. So an initiative in Connecticut was Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids Week, where all of the local product came from a farm locally, and students understood where their food came from. So I did a little lesson with a kindergarten class where they tried apples from a local farm. So we connected it to their Common Core standards, and we learned about the 5 senses, and that helped and deepen their connection to their food, their community that they're in, because they learned where the food came from and how it got to the plate that is sitting in front of them. And one kid even did a little happy dance at the end because it was something that he understood. He understood the lesson.
Final question along those lines, Phoebe. Do the local schools want this, or would they prefer, 1-800 dial, I'll use Cisco as an example, and bring me stuff? Talk about what the local schools want in this regard.
Local schools would love local foods. I think local foods give students a voice, it gives the school a voice, it gives everyone, it ties the community together, and healthier foods help students feel better. They understand what makes their body feel good, and because of that, that leads to better success in education, better physical health, just overall better wellness. And just promoting that wellness within schools is something that principals and nutrition educators love to do.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Phoebe. I'm going to just switch and take one of these questions that comes in from the folks online. I would remind folks that you do have your app, access to the app in front of you, and please use that as your portal for any questions or comments that you may have. And if we don't get to your questions, know that they will be put, in the system and be an important part of this program. This question says, how does a food hub expand capacity, i.e. increase the number of households served, without really putting too much strain on the local farms that they're trying to operate with? And that's probably a Sherry and Tara question, and anybody else, Charlene, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually one of the main reasons we started the Food Hub, because we had a lot of small to medium-sized vegetable farmers in Wisconsin that could not afford to individually make their food accessible to the community. So they put together their resources to pay for our insurance policy, our transportation, our food safety manager that helps them keep their food safety, allows us to train them on different methods of growing and packing. And so we're sharing it across the Food Hub versus each individual farmer. And the farmers love talking to each other. I've never seen conversations like I do since the Food Hub has formed. We meet bi-yearly and the farmers get together and they like teaching each other how to grow better, how to pack better, and that makes us stronger as a co-op to provide a product to our community.
Anything you want to add on that, Sherry?
She got it.
That's good. I'm going to just keep going with a couple of these questions, just given that our time, and I think this is a good one. It's a simple question, but again, it goes to the core of the follow-up that we're going to see. What makes local food procurement so darn difficult? What policies or systems are the biggest barriers going forward, and what do we need to change? Mm-hmm. Charlene, I'll start with you.
What makes it so difficult? I'll say lots and lots of rules that have been developed and been in practice before I was born. I think
probably not before I was born.
I mean, I think part of what could be done. I actually also spend a lot of time working alongside my procurement colleagues and business services partners. I think we have it noted where those challenges are. Let's remove some of those barriers. We can do it. I know there are government entities within Oregon, right, that have like the minimum threshold established at $50,000 that you can partner with vendors without a contract. That I think is a great practice and something to lift up. I also want to note that all of the policies that we relaxed during COVID should be permanent. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why. Yeah. For what worked during emergency standards should be the norm. I think reverting to anything or bringing back all those challenges and making it very hard and complicated. I think we have tons of opportunities around innovative, I won't even say emergent, innovative and proven practices that we need to think about how do we elevate and standardize these to have that ripple effect to address the challenges and barriers we know exist around food procurement.
Sherry, we're running out of time, but you've done a lot of federal procurement. How can we get more local?
It's just not that hard, and I would say...
Not that hard, okay.
Give me a shout, and we'll show you how. We did it.
We've got some USDA note takers out in the audience, so I think they're writing that down. Sherry, you may get a call on that. Well, folks, we are out of time, and please start. Let's just give our panel a round of thank you, please. I think I'm off now already. Okay. That's running on. This has been a great panel, folks. Thank you all for doing this. I would remind all of you that the common themes that we're talking about here on procurement, equity, inclusion, these are so important, and this is not the end. And I point you to the words of our Secretary of Agriculture. He's not done yet, and we're going to hear more about this. So thank you all for your participation here today.